Triple hey there. My name is Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. It's kind of a busy show. We're getting into the dog days of summer, and it kind of sucks. Kevin Lytle from the Coloradoan will join us as we continue our Mountain West Conference football post-spring pre-2024 season. Anyway, we're checking in with all the people who cover, report, whatever you want to call it. You think I would know? I was a print journalist. That cover Mountain West teams in the conference. Again, if you remember, we had Sean O'Toole from Mountain West Wire last week to talk about Air Force. This week, I've had Kevin Lytle on my radio show. He's been on this on our podcast before, so very happy to have him. And if I didn't forget from either out of the alcohol or the COVID brain, my name is Ryan Tamori, and this is the Pit Press Live. We'll also get an interview. He will join us live. Daryl Chestnut, he's a former running back for UNM. He's going to talk about his playing days with Bob Davie and his current thoughts on what the program is going through right now with the University of New Mexico football team. Tony Snell's brother, big news out of the Big 12, Tony Bennett. I can make all kinds of jokes, but I won't there. Gets an extension at UVA. We'll discuss Jerry West, and because we're slacking for some Mountain West talk or just any UNM talk, we're going to break down the NBA Finals again, even though we know this is a UNM-centric show. But I want to bring in our next guest, and he is a reporter for the Fort Collins Coloradoan, where he covers Colorado State athletics. He was born and raised in Colorado, and according to his bio on the Coloradoan's website, he played sports at a very average level. I can attest to that. Until he attended Colorado State University, then he started writing about sports. He still plays soccer and hockey, and he says he's not great at them. Kevin, I tell people that my golf handicap is the golf course itself. His name is Kevin Lytle. Kevin, how you doing, man? It's good talking to you again.
Yeah, doing great. How are you guys tonight?
I am hanging in there. I guess I'm going to start off with, because down here in Albuquerque, we live, breathe, and die. I didn't even introduce my co-host, Rick. I'm sorry, Richard Thompson.
Okay, we have guests on tonight. I'm doing well, man. We can get right into the football talk. I'm glad to have some football to talk about. So let's get right into it with Kevin.
No,
Thanks for having me back.
Of course, always. I am a terrible. I own thank God I own the company, because I'm terrible at this. I really quickly, before we dive into Colorado State football, and it's I think the biggest topic right now, heading in the summer. But in Albuquerque, with it being heavy basketball central, I reached out to you the week of March Madness, and then I think expletive hit the fan for both of us there. But just kind of a quick for our fans, with it being heavy basketball down here in Albuquerque, your very, very quick thoughts on Colorado State, their past season, and Nick Clifford coming back to the Colorado State Rams.
Yeah, last season, it's like a funky one to evaluate for Colorado State. You look, a 7th place finish in the Mountain West doesn't, sound or feel great. But CSU was in the top 25 a lot, some huge wins. The thumping of Creighton was, obviously a highlight. Making the NCAA tournament is always big for obviously everyone, but especially as, Colorado State. That was 13th time, I think, all time in program history. So, they're not a program that makes it that often, although that seems to be changing under Nico Medved, because this was the second 3 years. The first 4 selection, I don't want to sound like a homer. It didn't seem to make much sense to me based on what the NCAA claims the, evaluation tools are. But CSU goes there, plays Virginia, just destroys that team. That I don't know how that's an NCAA tournament team. And then basically looked like the legs were gone, and CSU did not play well against Texas. So overall, I think a pretty decent year. Like I say, it's pretty rare to make the tournament, so I don't think if you're a CSU fan, you can, complain too much about that. Isaiah Stevens, just a joy to watch as a basketball player. He rewrote, he owns every record basically at CSU. So yeah, overall good season. Then, like everyone has these days, the crazy offseason. CSU had 5 of their top 7 were out of eligibility, so you knew you were going to have a huge overhaul. And then third year in a row, they had a player, really a true stay or go decision with the NBA draft. 2 years ago is Roddy, who went. A year ago is Isaiah Stevens, who came back. And then this year is Nick Clifford. And man, it really came down to the wire for the longest time, it looked like Nick Clifford was going to be gone, but he comes back. Nice boost for CSU, a bunch of new players. So it's I think it's a team that certainly feels it should be pretty good, but so many new pieces that a lot of question marks as well. But people are really excited about the program. They signed Nico Medved to another extension. He was a hot commodity. He talked to several high major programs, was in the mix. He turned down the Oklahoma State job. So keeping him and the staff together was a big success, and they're really throwing some weight into that program financially.
I had the pleasure of meeting Nico Medved at the Mountain West Conference Basketball Media Days last year. You cover him. You're with him all the time. I know what it's like to be a beat reporter. I thought he was awesome. He was a pleasure to talk to. So I'm more amped because I believe through my veins, I pump college football. Even though all 5'8" of me and 160, when high school 145, I wasn't playing any football. I was looking up and down. I didn't know if CSU had a spring game. I would imagine they did. And if they did, what can you take away from it? And trust me, I have better questions than that.
Yeah. It was classic Colorado. It snowed spring week of the spring game, which was like late April. It's kind of snowed on the spring game day a little bit. The game itself, not a ton to take away, to be really honest. CSU, in today's day and age, you have so many players going in and out with the portal, throw in injuries during spring, and they were fairly bare bones for the spring game. I forget the number off the top of my head, but I think of sort of your projected 22 starters, for offense and defense. I think like 12 or 13 of them, one reason or another, weren't participating in the spring ball. So it's there were a couple individual guys that kind of maybe catch your eye, but for the most part, not a lot of huge takeaways. Even Jay Norvell after the game kind of said he's like, he likes doing them. He's a big spring game proponent, get the community involved. But he's saying, with the way numbers work, it's kind of hard to do a real game this day and age. I'm sure they're not the only program feeling that. So it's going to be interesting to see what teams do moving forward. Ole Miss did the basically skills competition instead of a spring game. I kind of wonder if some programs might start moving to that because it's just not super feasible right now.
Well, at UNM, you weren't allowed to take photos if you were a fan. So I'm killing the joke as if I guess they were trying to keep Death Star plans or invade Nazi-occupied Europe. You mentioned Jay Norvell. That's another conversation for another time. Jay Norvell left Nevada 2 years ago. That was kind of, if you pay attention to the Mountain West Conference, it was kind of a big deal to take the Rams job. He won 3 games in his first year. Last year, he wins 5 games. He's 8-16 overall. I kind of met him again at Conference Media Days. Seems like a very bubbly guy. Seems like high energy guy. I know that's cliche. Is it bowling or bust for him this season, given that the program hasn't been to a bowl game in now going on 7 years?
Yeah, it's close to that. I'm not sure, let's say it's 5-7 again. I'm not sure CSU would make a move, but there'd be some uncomfortable conversations. CSU needs to get out of this fire and move on cycle. The Bobo firing, the disaster of the Adazio area, and then this. So I think they want to stick it out. But yeah, if this team doesn't go bowling, there's certainly going to be uncomfortable questions because there's a lot of resources in the program. You've got to start winning. It's a tough schedule for CSU. But on the flip side, 7 home games, which has never happened in program history. So yeah, man, right there, you can never win. You can get all your wins to make a bowl with 1 to spare from Fort Collins. So yeah, I think it's an important year for Jay Norvell to rack up some wins and get CSU back into the postseason one way or another. I know a lot of CSU fans that would be happy to be going down to Albuquerque in December.
I was about to say, I'm sure they would take even the New Mexico Bowl.
100%. CSU fans love the New Mexico Bowl. They've had a great experience there. They really enjoy it. Obviously, at a certain point you want, a little higher sights, but no, CSU fans truly would be thrilled to go down to Albuquerque.
I know Jeff Symbieta, he's a very good acquaintance of mine. I would hope he's listening to that because I know he said he's gotten complimented a lot by a lot of other traveling programs because they're not from here. So plead the fifth on that. Is he equipped to boost this Rams program? He did a very good job in Nevada. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but is he equipped to run this to elevate this program to maybe 8-4, 9-3, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question because, I mean, that's obviously why he was hired. Nevada, not to drag Nevada, but, it's not a terribly well-resourced program. And so, that's why he got the attention of, CSU and I think other programs of winning there. It's almost like, oh, man, if you're winning at Nevada, you're doing something right. And so I think, or not, I know the thought from CSU was, man, if you can plug him in with the resources they have here in Fort Collins, that it should click. And you can see signs that's close, but again, at a certain point, you got to win. So yeah, I mean, I think you know he's a guy and staff that I think can win at a pretty good level. But again, at year 3, especially in the portal era, um, there's pressure to start actually showing it rather than just belief that could happen. So yeah, I think this team and program can win more games. Just needs to start doing it.
We are joined by Kevin Lytle, the Fort Collins Coloradoan. He covers Colorado State athletics. The Rams offense gets a majority of their offense back, including quarterback Braden Fowler, Nicolosi. I thought I wrote it down right. Is it Nicolosi?
Yep, you got it.
Perfect. Wide receiver Troy Horton comes back. He's a phenomenal player. He was second in receiving yards of the Mountain West Conference with just over 1,100. Good couple of backs, Van Shield, Kobe Johnson, and an incoming freshman, Jalen Dupree. What do you expect from this offense this year? I know they replace the tight end, Dalen
Holker. Yep. He's
Holker.
off to the NFL.
I figured he was in the NFL, but what do you expect from this offense this year?
Yeah, so I think, obviously that's it is how Norvell made his mark at Nevada with really explosive offenses. Most notably, Carson Strong obviously had huge success, huge numbers. And yeah, the first year at CSU, offense was terrible, which wasn't a huge shock. They had to make a huge shift from the 1940s offense of Steve Adazio to a modern one. So year 1 struggling wasn't a shock. Year 2, it was very up and down last year. Cliche, but it was very much a roller coaster. You would have some great moments, huge plays, or turnovers, or quick 3 and outs. There was kind of no middle ground. Sometimes it's okay to pick up a few first downs, eat some clock, and punt it away. And they just never had that. It was either, like I say, a big play for or against. So I think this year, one of the big things is to try and even that out. Like, obviously, I still want the big plays and everything, but Braden Fowler, Nicolosi also had 16 interceptions last season, which I believe led FBS. You can't have that. In this offense, you're going to throw some. It's a aggressive offense. You're going to have some turnovers, but you can't have 16 picks from your number one guy. So he needs to trim down that. You mentioned the run game. I think they're going to be. It's still a version of an air raid offense. It's they're not going to run it 50 times a game, but they have some really talented backs and are going to use that to control the clock, control games a little bit more, because what happened last year is they put their defense in really bad places as well with those turnovers or quick drives. The defense really struggled last year. Some of that the offense was responsible for, some of it the defense just wasn't good enough. So they just need more consistent and balance across the board. They've loaded up on receivers to join Horton. They have a tight end they're excited about, but he's a young guy. So yeah, I think it's gonna be maybe a little more balanced than what maybe those peak Nevada teams were.
You had kind of broken some news today that Colorado State added former San Jose State receiver Keenan Higgins going into 2024. What do you know about him? I mean, San Jose State, the end of October through November might have been the best team on this side of the country. They played very well down the stretch. What do you know about him?
Yeah, his recruiting profile at high school was pretty impressive. CSU had recruited him, so they're kind of circling back on a guy they had tried to get. He reportedly had BYU, Arizona State, I want to say, offers. Went to San Jose State. Didn't play a ton last year as a true freshman. Blocked a punt. Otherwise, didn't have a ton. Big time athlete. But yeah, he's just one of kind of a stable of guys they've brought in. They got one from Baylor who likewise didn't play a ton there, but big time athlete. Another guy from Cincinnati, who was previously at Washington State. Ironically, scored 2 touchdowns against CSU 2 years ago. So that's one way to catch attention when you enter the portal. So yeah, they've loaded up on guys that certainly have the physical body type, and in theory should flourish in this type of system.
Rick, do you have any insight before I ask about the defense?
I guess just on the offensive side, it looks like most of their offensive line is returning. And to me, I was a former offensive lineman, and I think that probably is one of the most overlooked groups in all of football and obviously undervalued. And I guess just how you said an air raid offense, how effective have they been running the ball so far under this new coaching regime? And do you think they'll have success this year?
Yeah, the O line has finally stabilized. First year under Norvell, it was really bad. They're the most sacked team in the country, but they've fixed that. And yeah, like you say, the key parts from last year are back. Their left tackle is back, which obviously is always huge. Center is back, which is huge, and then guy played right guard last year is probably going to move out to right tackle next year, but he has a lot of experience. And then probably young guys that have now been in the system. This will be their 3rd year taking those other spots. So should be a pretty cohesive unit that's been together or at least in the system for a while. So I think the offense is going to be somewhere between good and great. And some of that margin of which is going to decide is going to be the offensive line. I think they're going to minimum be solid, but if they can be dominant and like you say, especially add that run game element, that could really turn that offense into a great one. I think as a chance, it's one of those you watch some of these big guys in practice. They certainly have the physical pieces, but can you stay connected in a game when you're under the various pressures they'll see and whatnot. But on paper it's looking like they've stabilized that unit, are in pretty good shape. So yeah, how they can obviously protect the quarterback, that's always huge, but yeah, create holes in the run game is going to be really important, and I think they're fairly optimistic.
And you guys
Switching gears.
also get your
Oh,
two
good.
big rivalry games at home this year, right? So
Yeah,
that's
so
pretty big.
yeah, I think most people in college, that follow college football saw or heard of some of the all the drama around the Colorado game, and that game was insane last year. So yeah, now it's back up in Fort Collins this year. This will be the first time those teams have played in Fort Collins since 1996. And then you throw in all the drama. Those two coaches do not like each other. That has become blatantly obvious. The players hate each other. That's going to be a nasty, hostile night. It's on CBS in prime time. I would not be completely stunned if College Game Day makes an appearance after what happened last year. So that one's going to be huge. And then yeah, the other one in league play obviously is Wyoming coming to town. CSU has not won rivalry games for years and years and years. They got one under Adazio in the COVID year, which pseudo counts. But over the last like 6 years, I wish I had the math in front of me, but CSU is something like 1-21 in rivalry games over the last like 5-6 years, something like that. So that's another one. You talk about pressure on Jay Norvell. You have 3 rivalry games. If you add in Air Force, you gotta get at least one.
I will ask you about their non-con here in a second. The defense is kind of in the same boat with the offense. 6 starters returning, and the secondary might be, if not the team's most strengthened. If I could talk again, hosting a show, it might be the entire team's strongest core. Might be the best secondary in all the conference. But you get the defense led by first team All Mountain West Conference returner strong safety Jack Howell. But last year, the defense ranked 104th overall in total defense. What do you think needs to change?
Yeah, last year was just big plays, and they just gave up a ton of huge plays, and some at really key times. I mean, against Colorado, CSU was up 8 with less than 2 minutes left. Colorado was pinned at the 2. They allowed them to go down and score and get the 2.
Yeah, the Tom Brady.
Yep,
moment.
exactly. Against UNLV, CSU kicked a go-ahead field goal with, I think it was 44 seconds left, and let UNLV basically charge straight down the field and kick a chippy field goal to win at the end. against Hawaii, CSU had come storming back to tie the game with about roughly a minute left. Hawaii went down the field, kicked a game-winning field goal that cost CSU, a bowl game on the final game. So yeah, just the big plays, and especially at key times, were just absolutely killer for that defense. Again, the offense takes some blame for some of those defensive numbers that you mentioned because of the turnovers and the lack of ball control. But again, at a certain point, you just got to stop someone, and they just didn't do that enough last year. So yeah, there's pressure on that unit, pressure on defensive coordinator Frey Banks, who a year ago was being talked about as like a head coach, and now he's being talked about as he better turn this thing around to keep his job. That's how quick things change in the really all sports, but college football world. So yeah, there's pressure on that defense for sure.
Hitting on the non-conference schedule. They
nice,
open up
easy start, yeah.
They open up at Texas in their first game, and that is Texas's first game as a member of the SEC. I imagine you're probably going, but what do you expect from the Rams in that one game? And is it, we talk about it as members of the media, they obviously want to go win it. Those kind of games, I give a mulligan to those non, Power 5 school, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
But what do you expect out of the Rams in that game?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Obviously, a team is going to talk and plan and prepare, to win it. And you never know, crazy stuff happens. But practically, it's probably not a terribly winnable game for CSU. It's one of those you would like to see some flashes. You'd like to see the offense do some big things. If you can move the ball on Texas, you're going to feel pretty good. Defense, is obviously going to be very strained against, Quinn Ewers and that offense. But, if they can do some good things, it can give you, some confidence and momentum. And, I feel bad for coaches because, this contract was signed 2 head coaches ago. So Jay Norvell has, no say in it. But it's a big payday for the athletic department. I doubt Jay Norvell loves having to do it to start the season, but that's the reality of college sports. I think they get 1.6 milli for it. So you have to pay the bill somehow. And sometimes that there'll be a lot of traveling fans. It's, always kind of a fun celebration day for, like you said, group of 5 teams to go to a place like that. But yeah, in all practicality, that's one you'd like to show well, do some good things, be injury free, and get out of there.
I've got a question for you. When you've got a rivalry like this with the University of Colorado being in the Big 12, the Pac, whatever they've done there, they're in the Big 12 again. Do they give Colorado State a big payday, or is that kind of, because that's a big rivalry, is that just kind of a mutual thing, or does Colorado actually pay them?
Yeah, so in this one, this is actually the end of the contracts are really weird. One expired a couple years ago, and then they signed this series of sort of on again, off again, and it's basically just home and homes. There's a slight money, swapping on ticket allocations that I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's basically just straight home and homes, as opposed to like the Texas game, which is a payday.
Right. Will they ever play in Denver again?
I think that's gone. That happened for 20 some straight years, I think it was, with like 2 random games in Boulder during that time. But, CSU obviously built the on-campus stadium. If you've seen or been to Folsom and Boulder, it's a gorgeous setting, and they've done a lot of work there. I think the Denver time has come and gone. It had its moment when it was huge, and then, people kind of got used to it and almost bored with it. I think on campuses is where it should be. I think that's where it's going to be. That's where the contract, like I say, it's a weird on again, off again, but all calls for true home games as opposed to a Denver game. So it looks like for the pretty foreseeable future, it's going to be on campuses.
I'm going to probably blow your mind with this next question. This non-conference, again, Texas, Northern Colorado, and Colorado and UTEP are all in Fort Collins.
Yep.
Is there a possibility, because as much as I loved Dion going into the beginning of last year, and it was like the wheels fell off. I know you're in Fort Collins and not Boulder. They're not far, but is a 3-1 start for Colorado State, if I'm not smoking anything crazy, is that a real possibility?
It's possible, yeah. I mean, I think so. They basically have to beat Northern Colorado and UTEP. Those are games you can't lose. If you're trying to be a any level of postseason team, you can't lose those. So then you're talking 2-2 minimum, and then the Colorado's the big swing game in a lot of ways. And no one knows what Colorado's going to be. I mean, they've once again completely overhauled the roster. I think we saw last year a team that had a lot of high level talent, but not depth or consistency. I'm sure they'll have more depth this year, but I think it's probably fair to say, there's some question marks of, how good a team are they, or is it more a collection of individual talent? So CU will be favored in that game, probably pretty heavily. Some of that will be determined, obviously, on the first couple weeks of the season.
I saw that they have a line out for it. It was 8.5.
Oh, that's actually closer. I would guess. I would have guessed
that's
2
not
touchdowns.
that high.
Yeah, that's so yeah, like I said, Colorado will obviously be favored. They'll the money, just because of the attention on Dion, will heavily go to them. But I don't think it's ludicrous to think CSU can win that game. Again, we need to see these teams on field, especially Colorado. So much change. They changed both coordinators as well. So there's just so much unknown with that program. I think, if you're CSU, you're happy. Frankly, you'd probably want it earlier while they might be, figuring out some wrinkles.
I know Rick touched on it, but how? I mean, I know Wyoming's a big game. I know Air Force is a big game. I think Wyoming is probably, but it is one of those rivalries, and I think especially in basketball, they swept them this year. But or maybe they didn't do the home and away, but they did.
It's just a one. Yeah,
it's just the one, and they beat them in Fort Collins. But
yep.
How, and especially with what has transpired, and I know you touched on it, and I'm not trying to rehash anything, but with what happened between Jay Norvell's comments last year and then Dion, and that game was sort of, I think, Colorado catching themselves getting punched in the face and not knowing it. It's the old Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. How significant is that game, and how significant is this game because of the time? We don't know what Dion's going to do. I think he's probably going to stay there a while, but how significant is this game this year in Fort Collins?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, there's kind of a split in the CSU fan base of who's the bigger rival, Wyoming or Colorado. Older fans tend to go Wyoming. I think the younger generation tends to say Colorado. But I think this year, with what the fervor around Deion Sanders, how disliked he is amongst CSU fans this year, the Colorado one is the one, that everyone will want to win. If you had to tell CSU fans, you get one, you get the Boer War, you get the CU game this year, 90%, maybe more, would say Colorado. So yeah, it's huge. You factor in, like, say, the eyeballs, it's like 10, 11 million people watched that game last year. It's on CBS, this year. So there will be a ton again. So yeah, that's a huge, huge game. And if CSU were to win, that could potentially be a catapult for, a lot of positive things for Jay Norvell, as he tries to build forward.
And you are absolutely correct. Folsom Field it's magnificent though. And I've been on campus at CSU. It was awesome. And just in case any of the Lobo fans listening, September 14th on that night on CBS. I don't have a time there, but that's
I think it's 5 or 5:30 Mountain. It's right in prime time.
Gotcha. Perfect. Last question to you. And again, from the Coloradoan, Kevin Lytle. He covers all Colorado sports athletics for them, Colorado State athletics for them. You tweeted out this afternoon, and I liked it, quote, with the news of corporate sponsor conference names floating, which I would love if it was the Buc-ee's Big 12. What sponsor and name would you rebrand for the Mountain West? Seriously and decidedly seriously, ideas welcome. End quote of your tweet. Who would be your sponsor?
It's one I've been trying to think of. A couple people had some good suggestions, and a couple that made me laugh. One person said In and Out, because everyone in the Mountain West has it, or almost everyone, and it's fitting for the Mountain West because people want to use it as a stepping stone to go to Power 5. So you're in, then you're out. I thought that was pretty clever. Someone said Schlotzsky's. You don't not everyone knows they exist, but the product is surprisingly good, which I thought was pretty funny because I did not know Schlotzsky's still existed. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think there's still one by UNM here. That's
Yeah,
funny.
I didn't even know they're still around, so they nailed that one. I haven't myself. I mean, that's partially why let the people help me come up with things. I don't have a great one yet. I've been trying to think. In all practicality, like Maverick is Maverick in most places in the Mountain West. I feel like it probably is.
It's
That
here.
could be a realistic sponsor. Maybe you can. Southwest is based in Denver. Can you do like a name rebrand for both, and somehow make it the South Mountain Southwest something or other? Some their work, but who knows? Some crazy is probably coming. It feels like.
He is.
I got the
go ahead, Rick.
The Dude Wipes Mountain West Conference.
Dude Wipes Mountain West Conference. Dr. Squatch Mountain West Conference. I like Dude Wipes. I think that works very well. I guess with the marijuana being, it's legal in New Mexico, but in Denver, I don't know if you could go with that. He is
got one comment here. You want to give it to Kevin?
Yes. Who is CSU's top NFL prospect? I will give it to him.
That's a good question. That one's pretty clear right now, at least. Torrey Horton, the receiver. He could have gone last year. It was actually a pretty big boon for CSU to keep him. He was probably a middle rounds pick if he had stayed. Came back. His big thing was, just add weight. He's a pretty wiry guy. He's had like 12, 13 pounds of good weight. And he's a potential top 3 rounder, I would say, a year from now. So yeah, Torrey Horton's a guy that a year from now will be pretty firmly in some NFL team's camp.
CSU's had a pretty good turnout of wide receivers. He is a beat writer or Colorado. He covers Colorado State athletics for the Fort Collins Coloradoan, and his name is Kevin Lytle. Kevin, really appreciate your time coming on. We'll have to do it again, but on such short notice too. And I've always appreciated you making time for me. I might bug you. Looks like you're probably UNM goes up there. I might be bugging you the week of October 26th, but thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. We are going to take a break real quick, and then we're going to be joined by a former UNM running back. Let me stop real quick and do a good job hosting the show. Former running back for UNM. He played during the Bob Davie era. His name's Daryl Chestnut. We're really excited to have him on, and then Ed Nunez is going to join us. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will get to those guys and talk some more football, in particularly UNM football. My name is Ryan Tamori, and this is the Pit Press Live, and I didn't do it. Hey, Richard. And Rich Copson is joining us.
I'm here.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live. My name's Ryan Tamori. Oh, I got to mute you there, Daryl. I'm sorry. I'm incredibly sorry. Rick joined by Richard Thompson. Rick, how you doing? I forgot to introduce yourself there at the beginning of Kevin Lytle. So
I'm
really
doing good
sorry
with
about
great
that.
conversation about Colorado State. Happy to talk to Daryl here and get Ed on.
No, very happy. Now, all right, I'll go to. He's been a Lobo fan since 1970, and he's the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. His name is Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. It's caught a little bit of your interview and some great insight about Colorado State football. They sound like they're going to have a pretty good season.
All right, I'm happy to have our next guest on. I might have to have you mute your phone there or something, Daryl. I'm sorry about that. He was a running back for UNM in 2015, 2016, and 2017. In his senior season, he had 4 TDs, 459 yards, and he averaged 38 yards a game. And what a bowl game with UNM. His name is Daryl Chestnut. Daryl, thank you very much for joining us. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you guys for having me.
I'm going to start off with this question. I was a big fan of Last Chance University, and I think that I forgot which school. I think it was Independence U. They played Coffeyville, so it was very cool to see that you went to Coffeyville Junior College. Can I ask you what junior college life is like?
Junior college life is everything that you see is rough. It's hard to get out of. It's the hard knock life collegiately. And many guys don't make it out. That's how I could explain junior college.
If you've ever watched that show, that's exactly what it's like. How did you find yourself at UNM, and what was it like playing in Albuquerque?
I found myself at UNM from my coach, Apollo Wright. He was the recruiter at Florida International. He offered me my sophomore, junior year, one of those years. And he ended up being the running backs coach and UNM. And I never played it down at Coffeyville. And he was the only coach that gave me a full ride because I was a bounce back guy. And then for me, getting to UNM, I felt like I was in heaven because I was coming from Coffeyville. So everything was peaches and cream compared to what I was in Coffeyville, in Kansas at that.
Yeah, that's that. I'm going to stress that again, to see that on that Last Chance U show and just watching that. I mean, I have most respect for those guys that go to junior college,
and especially coming from Miami, Daryl, to the middle of nowhere, Kansas. I can't imagine what that was like.
It was a culture shock. Kansas and Miami is totally different. I was used to the fast pace, and then I had to slow down. And then Albuquerque is not too fast, also. But you know, I ended up liking Albuquerque, to be honest with you.
If you're not from here, yeah, you like it. You were described as a gifted running back that shows power and speed, great hands, and great quickness. You were getting looked at by at the time Big Ten schools. But when you hear those things said about you, and this is a cliche softball question, when you were in college, who would you have compared your game to any running back that you grew up idolizing or watching?
I really tried to mold a lot of my game after a guy like Darren Sproles. You know, he was a shorter guy. He took those short strides like I did. And he really had a passion for catching the ball out of the backfield and also like running the ball. And I feel like those type of weapons, they last longer in the NFL. So that's why I wanted to mold my game after a guy like him. He was always going to be on special teams, kickoff return, punt return. He could play slot. He could play running back. That's everything I wanted to do.
That was a good answer. I didn't expect you to say Darren Sproles. Ed or Rick, do you have any questions or
just
any
a quick
insight?
follow-up on that? Can you talk about, as you know, the third or fourth running back on the team, what it's like playing special teams, right? Because I'm sure that's a big part of how you got your time early on, right? Is proving yourself on special teams and just how dynamic you have to be to play multiple positions.
When I first, are you talking about when I first came to UNM
And I guess in general,
in general?
balance good special teams player with your running back duties.
Yeah, in general, growing up, my coach Lorenzo Woodley, he was always telling me I need to learn how to catch, and I never wanted to learn how to catch just because I felt like I was just because I felt like I was a every down back, and I felt like I never had to learn how to catch, and I was bigger than everybody. And then when I got to high school and everything, all of that changed. So I definitely was 5'8", a buck 75, and all the other guys were like 6'1", 220. So I had to learn how to catch.
Daryl, it was quite a triangle from Kansas. You mentioned Miami to Kansas to Albuquerque, and you mentioned Apollo Wright. He sold you on coming here to play, and it was at a time when New Mexico had some success under Rocky Long, and then the program faltered a little bit when they bought. You and I have talked a lot about the program when you were here and the success that you had with the speed in the backfield that you played with, and speed to kill, speed to burn, man. Talk a little bit about again though. You're coming out of Kansas. You mentioned Kansas culture shock from Miami. Albuquerque had to be the same thing. What was the Coach Wright's appeal, his approach to sell you on coming here to play at the University of New Mexico? What was the about what he said that made you want to come here?
Um, Really, when I came, well, Coach Wright visited me in Kansas, and when someone gives you an opportunity, and it's not just because that's the only opportunity you have. I just felt like Coach Wright gave me a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I was so hungry because I was committed to Indiana, and I just felt like he didn't have to come and grace me with an opportunity to come play Division I football when I'm 18 years old, and I'm thinking everything was taken away from me. But Coach Wright, he didn't really have to sell me on much, but just opportunity and just a will to play. And everything he said actually worked out and went the same way he explained to me. All I wanted was an opportunity, and I got an opportunity on each level, and that's all I could ask for.
The opportunity worked out here at the University of New Mexico. You mentioned that, and yesterday you and I had a lengthy conversation about the culture here at New Mexico, what it was when you played, what it's been since then. Is a lengthy one. I think we talked for about 30 minutes yesterday. But Daryl, if you could talk to us a little bit about what you think. You're a big fan of New Mexico football. You're still a big supporter. You're a Lobo for life, man. A Lobo for life. You still. You still live here in Albuquerque doing your dog breeding business. We heard a couple of those big dogs barking in the back there, man. So talk to us a little bit about Daryl, what you feel. Coach Mendenhall's been hired. You and I talked about this yesterday. We're hoping for a culture change and wins. But talk about what you feel the culture change at UNM has to be for Lobo football to move to where everybody wants to see it.
Like we talked about yesterday, I just feel like being inside the community and the coach understanding the community is one thing. But then also, like me and you were discussing, when it came down to the head coach, uh, the university actually believing in giving the head coach the opportunity to go get the guys that we need in order to be successful. And a lot of the guys that's going to help be successful is a lot of guys that I'm training and guys that's training now going into collegiate football. Um, if the community is behind a university, then the kids are dreaming big enough to want to go to a school like UNM. But if the community isn't, then you have hometown kids and local kids that's going to want to go to Arizona State, like we mentioned with Cam Dyer. It's just no reason why. I don't see a reason why kids should leave when the community is behind the university, and the university wants to actually put guys into the NFL and get them to where their dreams are. So that to me, that's the big deal. So it's community and also backing and support from the university.
you mentioned, let me just ask one question. I'll turn it back over to Ryan. But you mentioned dynamic players, Daryl. You mentioned difference makers. I almost thought of any given Sunday when get you that bowl game, get you those guys when Stephen Willie Beeman says that to Al Pacino, get you those guys. You were talking about that yesterday. You know, you mentioned we haven't had a dynamic quarterback, a difference maker at that position in many years. You mentioned we haven't had a 1,000-yard wide receiver in many years. The defensive, there's been some very good defensive players, but not that difference maker, not those guys that you're talking about. You feel like that's essential to get those guys. Now, Devin Dampier might be that guy. He might be. We hope he is, right? He stayed. He could have gone somewhere else. I wasn't sure he was going to stay, but he did. Now, Coach Mendenhall is very high on him, and we're hoping he is that quarterback, that consistent quarterback that UNM hasn't had in a long time. Talk about those difference makers that you were talking to me about yesterday.
Difference makers is guys that, we all know football, guys that could change the game at any time. The guys that want to be on the field, and I feel like right now, from the previous years up till now, I don't know Coach Mendenhall's coaching philosophy enough to actually speak on it. But from what I've seen and what I've been a part, the culture that was instilled in us was that our coaches wanted to see us get to the next level. And we had a lot of dynamic guys on our team, but we didn't utilize them enough to actually show how dynamic they were. So like we were talking yesterday, a lot of this boils down to coaching and situational football. I feel like there's not enough intel on situational football to put the guys in the right situation in order to perform. Now, we had guys like Delane Hart, Terrion Gibson, but our running back room, when you look at our running back room and you talk about playmakers and game changers, I want to say probably a third or whatever got an opportunity to showcase their skills at the next level because we were a running team. Now imagine if you have situational football and you have a balanced scheme when you have a guy going to catch 1,000 yards, a back and another back probably rushing for 1,000 yards, and your quarterback's also throwing for 3,500 with a deadly weapon and a tight end. So now you're able to showcase what these guys can do. UNM, if we get out of this box and actually compete with other Mountain West schools and schools across the country, guys that actually want to come here. And I know that from being from South Florida, where a kid getting an offer from New Mexico is big to the guy from Miami, but we're getting all the Power 5 schools that we'll never be able to look at a school like this because it's not enough noise being made. And that's just me being brutally honest of what we have to change in Lobo Nation.
Did you grow up a Miami guy, an FSU guy, a Florida guy, or am I not allowed to say any of those team names?
So I'm from Coconut Grove, and Frank Gore, he's from my neighborhood, and he was Frank Gore and Roscoe Parrish. They were two of the first guys that I seen make it out of my neighborhood. And I always wanted to go to UM. And then I end up going to Gulliver Prep, Miami Gulliver Prep, where Sean Taylor went to. So I was a UM diehard fan.
I think when Miami's better at football, this is a joke. College football is better for it when the U's better.
When they say swag, when they say the word swag, and when you're winning in Miami, you're definitely going to see what swag really is. Like, winning is at an all-time high. The confidence is at an all-time high. And my biggest thing is I want Albuquerque to experience that. They deserve it. Because I'm looking at these parents with a bunch of kids that I train. These guys are going to Nevada. They're winning D1 Nation tournaments. They're going to my neighborhood. Like, these parents are taking their kids to where I'm from to go and see how it is in Miami, to go side by side and compete against the guys from Florida, from Miami, and see the culture of football. It's a real tradition. It's a real culture. And being here, which I do love, I love UNM. I want to see this city because it gave me an opportunity. I want to see this city actually succeed in something other than just MMA or whatever other sport that's popular here. Football is big here, but it has to be seen.
I like those answers. And especially the swag. I think Michael Irvin says that on one of the documentaries. He says it's swag. You know, you played under Bob Davie during that era, and you guys even won. And I don't think a lot of people reflect on this. You guys were co-division champions. This is a very, very, I would never tell this story on this show. But I had an Uber driver and I forgot the guy's name. And he was a defensive lineman for the Lobos. He came from Texas and he kind of sounded like you. And I forgot the poor guy's name. And he became like a BCSO. He became a Bernalillo County sheriff. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but he was like, man, I bled for UNM. We won a bowl game, and the fan support. Do you think that, and you guys were averaging like 22,000 and you were winning. You had your 2015, your 2016 seasons were great. I agree that winning cures all, but you were talking about culture. I mean, when I heard that as a UNM alumni, and I try to remain objective, it was very disheartening for somebody who bled. And again, we might be UNM alumni, and we always talk to Ned James. He was the quarterback here in the 80s. He knows Ed very well, and he's funny. I love talking to him, but he's always mentioned, you know, there's a difference. It is truly a brotherhood with UNM alumni. But when I heard that, I was a little bit like, you know, wow. And I work for the student newspaper, but when you hear that, I mean, what do you think? Does that discourage you as well? And do you think you guys were winning and that more fans could have probably showed up? I know that's kind of a crazy question.
No, it's not a crazy question because, like I was telling Mr. Nunez yesterday, when you look at it, right, Coach Davie came in from Notre Dame, and I'm not saying he wasn't a winner, but it wasn't Nick Saban. It wasn't nothing just over the top. But he came in and utilized everything that he had in order to put together an 8-win season. My first or second year here. I think my first year here we won 7 games. I think we went 7-5. But we beat Boise on the blue turf. That was a huge win. And then you come back that year you're talking about being co-champions. We killed Wyoming, all those guys, and we won the bowl game that year. So everything plays a part of setting it up. So I look at it like we were the first guys to actually bring a mentality of winning. This is just my point of view of winning. And you still need someone when everybody leaves, you still need the next generation to continue to carry that on. And it's probably been broken away because it wasn't consistent enough. 2 years isn't enough. 2 years of winning in any institution isn't enough. That's why Nick Saban is looked upon as the best head coach in the world, because he just didn't give 2 seasons. He gave of every ounce of consistency that he had. So now we weren't looking to bring 40 and 50,000 people in. The 22,000 was just a start when you're trying to start something. That was just a start. Now Coach Mendenhall comes in and does what he needs to do. He's starting over from scratch. He's starting from the bottom. But he needs consistency. It just can't be him. It has to be the university. When you think about X's and O's in situational football, the head coach could only muster up the guys that really and truly wants to be here to continue to be consistent. If we're consistent, we'll win. And that's everything. And when you buy into that, that's all you need. That's everything you need. Like, for instance, what's his name? Ja'Cory, the running back kid.
Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
Love him. In my eyes, he's one of the most talented running backs that ever graced the field at UNM. And it shows because he's getting Power 5 offers. But he could have been a guy that stayed and continued to start to keep the legacy going on with tremendous running backs coming from UNM. But do we have the backing in order to be consistent to make him feel like that? Now, when you think about one person, you have to think about one team. And then when you think about one team, then you think about everybody that's coming to pay for a ticket and sit in the stadium. So it has to be the community, the team, and everybody, not just the team or the head coach.
You know, Daryl, one of the
go
things
ahead,
we
Ed.
talked about yesterday, the running back room. You mentioned the running back room when you were here, and I might be missing, but a name here or two. Jarrell Presley got a look at the pro level. Terrion Gibson got a look. Lamar Jordan, Richard McCorley. I don't know if he did. Yourself, you got to try it with the Washington Commanders. Owens, what was his first name? I think you're muted. Tyrone Owens. Talk a little bit about that triple option that Coach Davey was running until they started, defenses adjusted about a couple years later. But when you guys were playing here, talk a little bit about that speed to burn, man. Every back. I remember Jarrell Presley, Terrion Gibson, Richard McCorley was a heck of a back. Every one that we just mentioned, and you mentioned Delaney Hart Johnson, who didn't get enough passes, but what might have been an NFL prospect. You said that to me yesterday. Talk a little bit about the running back room when you were here. And Lamar Jordan was more of a running quarterback. He got a look with the Ravens. You mentioned Austin Apodaca as a passer, and if he had gotten more, passing attempts, he might have got a look at the pros. You mentioned that to me yesterday. Talk a little bit about the talent you had on offense when you were here.
So let's put this in perspective. So is that 4 or 5 running backs besides myself you just named? That's like 4 guys. Terrion Gibson led the country in yards per carry. Tyrone Owens was a true sophomore with like 1,100 yards. Richard McCorley, I want to say, has the all-time touchdown record here at UNM. Jarrell Presley ran a 4.3. I was probably the quickest running back on our team. And probably about 3 of us, myself, Jarrell, Terrion had a training camp tryout with the Jets. Richard didn't. But if any one of these guys go into a different Mountain West a playbook or offense, we're talking about guys that are going to the National Football League because of opportunity. Now, when you look at Tyrone Owens, and we just went over my stats, and I came late. Tyrone Owens is a year younger than me, and my senior year I had 457 yards and 4 touchdowns. I don't know what Tyrone had, but he still rushed for 1,100. And this is where I say situations are important, and situations carry over to the NFL. So statistically, Tyrone Owens rushing for 1,000 yards as a sophomore, he's supposed to be in the National Football League, or let alone get an opportunity, right? But when it comes to quickness, and he has vision like no other. He's one of the best backs that I know that has vision like him, to be a smaller runner. He's powerful and everything, but he didn't get a tryout. If he's at Colorado State, who you guys just talked about, getting those opportunities, he gets the opportunity. But in order the running back room here was so talented that everybody had to touch the ball, and it shows based off of opportunity that you get. I got an opportunity, and I probably had the least yards out of everyone. So being quick, being fast, and being talented is something that definitely gets you a look. And being in that room, I had to come ready to practice every day. Jarrell is a 4.3 guy. Terrion is shifty, quick, and fast. Richard McCorley is 5'11", 230 pounds, and can run anybody over. And T.O. can see a cut. If he's just looking to the right, he could feel it and just put his foot in the dirt and go now. I don't think anybody understands that we were leading the country in yards per game or per carry the 2016 year. It was different. Like everybody was explosive and everybody was a home run hitter.
Not forgetting Lamar Jordan either, who could go, take a little, fake, right? And he
went
on too.
In situations, he went to the Atlanta Falcons. He played quarterback for us. And this is so pivotal and so important to me for coaches. Lamar Jordan was able to get a Atlanta Falcon opportunity for being a wide receiver. He never played receiver at UNM. He was able to get an opportunity just by playing quarterback. So are you telling me if Lamar would have switched positions or switched schools, he would have had a better chance of getting drafted? Because he went in as a free agent. I went in as a tryout guy. So it's different. This is why situations and understanding your players is so important.
I have another question for you because, Ed, I've told this story a million times, but my mom thought she was giving birth to an offensive lineman, and 5'7", 140 in high school. I think I mentioned that twice now. I'm not an offensive lineman. I was a half-ass second baseman, but I lived and died, and we were talking about this Tuesday. I got a couple buddies, from here. I love college football. My parents are from outside Rutgers. Rutgers is the birthplace of college football. Ed, I did it twice. I mentioned my Daily Lobo days in the state of New Jersey. But we lived and died with a guy by the name of Dontrell Moore, who I know. He's been on the show. He's great. You mentioned Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and it's not a disrespect to your 2 or 3 years here. And it had been a while since something had happened, from your guys' 2016 season till at least last year. You play running back, and I think a lot of Lobo fans have felt like, man, there's one guy. I'm not talking Devin Dampier. He might be a special player himself, but can you talk about the way Ja'Cory ran last year and how much of a special talent he is, and why he was getting looked at by schools like Ole Miss or U of A?
When I first saw him play, people back at home will always ask me, who's number 5 for the Lobos? And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I was in Albuquerque and I didn't know at the time, but everybody kept saying he's like a Swiss Army knife. He could do everything. So I think it was one game when he went crazy. I think he had like 200 plus. I don't know what game it was, but he took over the game. But when you see the kid, I think he's like 6 foot, 210, 205, and he could really run and catch. This is why it's so important, once again, understanding the type of players that you have and you can't let go. No back that I just mentioned that was in our room was 6 foot at all. This kid is 6 foot and he's really running. And the Power 5 schools, they see it. So to me, if you're a head coach and other schools are trying to get a hold of what you have to value a player like him. His caliber is going to bring more kids to your program because they see what he can do. He was electric though, but I really enjoyed watching him. The versatility is one thing. If you're not versatile at the collegiate level, high school level, you won't go to the NFL. And it's as simple as that. You won't get looked at if you're a one-trick pony. If you can only run straight, if you can only get the tough yardage, they have other guys that can do both, like Ja'Cory. He'll be a draft pick to some NFL team for sure. He was one of the best backs that I've seen come through New Mexico.
That was going to be my next question, if he is NFL ready, but you answered it there, so
Yes.
Appreciate that. My last question, I'll throw it to Rick. I have one more, but I'll throw it to Rick and Ed before that. I had the pleasure of going to Boise State last year for the UNM game. It wasn't, obviously, if you're a UNM alum, wasn't how the game you wanted it to go. But you guys on like the most epic night, I guess, in Albuquerque sports, between you guys knocking off Boise State and then the Holly home fight. And I'm sorry, I had to go on mute there, but how hard it is to go to Boise on the blue turf and win. I would imagine, maybe other than the bowl game win or 2016, is that your most memorable game? And can you talk about how hard it is on that turf and in that city?
Man, so that was 2015, and that was my first year in Albuquerque. and all the guys that were here, like Terrion, he was here a year before me. So he was here 2 years before me, and he was explaining it to me, but I just didn't understand. And he was like, bro, we have to go here and we have to win on the blue turf. So my first game here, we played Mississippi Valley State, so I didn't really get a real experience of the crowd or anything yet. But when I went to Boise, it was so electric. They had draft pick guys on their squad. The crowd was into it, and every running back made a play. But yes, that was my most memorable time being a Lobo, and it had nothing to do with none of a catch that I had, a run that Terrion may had. It was all about Markel Bird making that game-saving tackle because, and it's so underrated and so many people overlook that. But Coach Davey came in, I want to say that Monday, and that's all he kept playing. So that stuff that's almost been with me for 10 years now. And Markel made that tackle, and he really saved the game because if he wasn't there, the guy would have scored and we would have lost. So yes, that was a huge win, and that was probably the best time to be a college athlete at UNM.
That I appreciate that answer. Thank you very much. I'm going to throw it to Rick or Ed if they have anything to add, and then I'll wrap it up with one last question.
I just want to say, Daryl, I could listen to you talk about football all day. You're almost making me cry, just your word choice and how like inspirational it is. But just changing gears a little bit, can you talk about after your football career and how you kind of transitioned into this business world of Frontline Elite, and just a little bit about what the dog breeding business is along with your training academy now, and just how those two come together?
Like I was telling Mr. Nunez, I want to say last year, the football world is so big, and I just feel like a lot of us, we come from similar backgrounds, similar places. And then when you go and get these opportunities, you never know who you're going to meet. So I met, like I told Mr. Nunez, I met a guy named Jerron Christian at the Redskins. He was in the dogs, and I was getting in the dogs myself. And he's who actually started getting me going with the dogs, and that's been so good to me. It's a passion of mine, but I don't think it's no passion bigger than football, the game of football, training, and what it comes with. Seeing these kids that I train right now is very motivating because in today's time, a lot of kids they're in the house, they're not into sports like how we were back then. These guys, they're actually giving me everything they have day in and day out. We're out there at 3:30s, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and Saturdays and Sundays, and the parents are behind them, and they want to win. They want it, so that makes me want it more when it comes to just seeing kids prosper now. For me, understanding how challenging football was, I think I just brought that into business for myself. So I don't look at any opportunity, any situation like it's too hard or too little. I just attack it like I would the game of football. So.
Can you just tell us like what age range you're training and what type of training it is for people?
So we do speed and agility training, and also positional training. It's crazy, starting. I never want to start with like kids like 5 years old, but I always look back at it and say I was one of those kids that was 5 trying to play football. So I didn't want to be selfish, but I have a lot of young guys from 8 years old. I have a lot of 10, 11, 12-year-olds. I have a 13-year-old. So it's about 8 years old to 15. My 10-year-old guys, they're lights out. They just won D1 Nation in Nevada, and their group of parents from Coach Chris D'Antoni, the Coleman family, and the Valdez family, all these people, man, they are so in tune with their kids, and it's such a blessing because you don't have that sometimes back where I'm from. I'm actually trying to get more kids from Miami to come see Albuquerque. And I've been talking to people in my hometown about actually making it happen. Like one of my kids, he's 8, and he takes the game of football so serious. I set him up in Miami. He went to visit my high school, Christopher Columbus. He went to the park that I played ball at, and they took him right on in. So they have me. I'm committed to this. It's not even a business, man. I'm committed to this journey with them, and just hoping it blossoms and prospers.
No, Rick stole my my question. I was going to ask you about Frontline Elite and the dog breeding. Ed, do you have anything else?
Just 2 quick questions for you, Daryl. You count Cleveland Browns wide receiver Amari Cooper and Dallas Cowboys running back now Ezekiel Elliott as 2 of your closer friends. Amari Cooper might be getting paid here. Justin Jefferson just got a big contract. Amari Cooper getting to play with Deshaun Watson again. Deshaun Watson coming back from arm surgery, and Ezekiel Elliott back in Dallas. Your quick comments on both of those situations.
I'm happy for Zeke for sure. Zeke, he's a good friend of mine. I want to see Zeke retire from Dallas. Yeah, I think it's been a deserving journey for him. And he's a legend in Dallas. To me, he's like one of the best rookie running backs the Cowboys seen. One of the best running backs, point blank, period, that the Cowboys seen. And he gave them blood, sweat, and tears. His New England stint, I didn't like it, but I'm glad he's back. And on to Amari. I think a lot of people don't give him enough credit that he deserves because it's not flashy. But when you look at it, he's the best route runner, not because we're close, but he's the best route runner in the game of football. I don't see anybody actually competing in that category alone with Amari because he creates separations in his sleep, and that's what receivers about, creating separation. Now the Cleveland Browns, they have a decision to make, and the only decision is because he's turning 30 years old. But I call that the front office mess because Stephon Diggs is 30, Devontae Adams is 30 plus. A lot of these guys are 30 and they're getting 28, 27, 25 million on plus. So I think they would end up paying him because he's the best receiver to grace Cleveland in the first place. Caught 1,000 yards back to back.
Paul Warfield might have an argument, man, but he was old, but he's
1,000 yards, 1,000 yards back to back.
Yeah.
Daryl, I really want to thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it, and I'm hoping that you will be able to join us in the future, and maybe we can have you talk during the season. It was a pleasure. Ed had been building you up, and I was like, let's get him on. So I appreciate you taking time out of your night to join us and to talk about actually some of the football teams that won. But I appreciate your passion. I really do, and thank you for joining us.
Man, thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, D.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. That was Daryl Chestnut, a former UNM running back. We were happy to have him on. We're going to take a quick commercial break and wrap up. Ed, if you're willing to come back on and wrap up some things. Rick, yes, I know if you got to go, you can go. But do you have any final thoughts?
Just great interview with Daryl there. I mean, I wasn't lying when I said I could listen to him talk about football all day. I mean, the detail that he was able to talk about the running back position and just understanding the culture of a football team and understanding what New Mexico needs to get out of this rut that they've really been in since, he was a part of it. And I think he's right. It's going to take a buy-in from the community and businesses. And I think things like he's doing, starting kids at a younger age to build up the football culture in Albuquerque is huge. I know when I was growing up, Yaffle was a great community, and I hope it's still doing big numbers. But I think things like he's doing, providing opportunities for campers or kids to come work with the former Lobo, and for kids to look up to Lobos like we used to. Those things will all help. But in the end, it will come down to wins, like we always say. But if they can get, a few wins and get out of this rut, I think the community will be more willing to buy in. And if people like him, former athletes, are doing things like that, I think he's hitting the nail on the head with the things that would help.
I would just want to say really quickly, it's been a hot minute since I heard. I don't know, Ed. I did talk to Ned James a lot last year. But it's been a minute since I heard somebody talk so enthusiastically about Lobo football, and I'm proud to be a Lobo football alumni, because I feel like we don't get it all that much. But Ed, you brought him on, and your thoughts.
Let me just tell you this. We talked for almost 40 minutes yesterday. Any conversation with him about football or anything else, I love the guy. I told you how I met him at Manzano Mesa Multi-Generational Center, where I worked many years ago, and we just developed that friendship. He calls me. I always tell him, "Hey, Daryl, call me Ed, man." I always got that respect, so he calls me Mr. Nunez. And there's, Daryl's a great guy. Wants the university to succeed. You mentioned, Ryan, he's proud to be a Lobo, and and Rick, you saw it. Yeah, he came out of him. He wants New Mexico to succeed. He's got, he was talking about personnel matchups yesterday. I think he could be a coach. He breaks down the game so impressively. He knows it. So I think with the training he's doing with these young guys, particularly at the running back position, I'm sure they learn quite a bit from him. Because anytime I talk to him, I know football, but not like you do, Rick. I've watched it for, since 1970. I don't know the personnel breakdowns that he does. And he was talking about that yesterday, and we had a great conversation. And I knew he'd be a great guest. He's just a great guy. So, like you mentioned, Ryan, proud to be a Lobo.
No, he was awesome. Hey, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Rick, if you're not here when we come back, it's okay. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I'll hit up some of the comments from the Daryl conversation. Then Kevin Lytle wanted to get some live guests to all those that are watching, and it seems to be the usual suspects. My name's Ryan Tamori. I was joined by Rick Thompson, Ed Nunez. We were good. Again, quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Glad Ed's joined us because I want to talk a little bit about Jerry Rest, but just in case, Rick, you don't come back.
Richard.
And we will be back on the Pit Press Live.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Play fake by McCamey. Looking downtown. Touchdown! Basket! 7 yards for the score.
Here's what they're in 22 personnel, 2 backs, 2 tight ends. And it's McKamey to basket. That's it. Now watch. Gordon does a pretty good job. He doesn't get his hands on him. He fell that little stutter. I like what he's doing, but he's got to keep his eyes on the receiver. As soon as his head.
2 backs and 2.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live. My name's Ryan Tamori. I am joined by Ed Nunez. Much thanks to Richard. Special thanks to Kevin Lytle. Special thanks to Daryl Chestnut. Ed, you had been talking about getting Daryl on. That was sort of what I expected and better because you had high praise for him. I am hoping that he can, if he's watching the team throughout the year, I hope he can help us break down some game. But that was it was a good interview. It was a great interview, and he was very candid, which I appreciate.
You know, if you look at it, I don't know that team gets enough praise. The 2016.
I'm going to cut you off there. They don't because they don't. They don't.
They, you think about the backs that he mentioned. I started thinking about some of the great backs in New Mexico history. Don Perkins was one of them. Mike Williams back in the day. Winslow Oliver. I'm sure I'm missing Rodney Ferguson, the lumbering back from Monsanto. Dontrell Moore, you'd mentioned him. The backs they had that season. He mentioned, Apollo Wright did a great job in recruiting that backfield room to New Mexico because they all had speed. Now, once the defenses started adjusting to that triple option, it wasn't as effective. But for those couple of seasons, speed to burn. But remember, and Daryl and I talked about this yesterday, it didn't move the attendance meter at University Stadium. They averaged 22,000, and that wasn't fair. I started thinking about Jarrell Presley, Terrion Gibson. Jarrell Presley, remember those legs he had, those big thighs? He could really run. They all could, and I don't know that team, looking back on it, is given enough credit, and they probably don't get enough credit. They don't. It was a time when Coach Davey was here, and he didn't leave with exactly the best under the best of circumstances. And again, it's Lobo football. If it's Lobo basketball, that team is praised. To the cows come home, right? But not Lobo football, and it's not fair. And I started thinking about that because that team was really good. It really was.
Those weren't the teams that I paid that close attention to. I was at the Daily Lobo for Rockies last year before he got fired. And yes, he got fired. He did not step away. That was the cover. Krebs fired him. Yeah, that I forgot about that because I paid a little bit of attention and it was like, I had lost my luster for Lobo football after the Mike Loxley years, and I was there a part of it. And, we had people watching, and I get shit on Twitter. And yeah, I try to remain objective as a reporter. I know I have all of this behind me. I grew up here, and I've mentioned it. My friends, Stephen Pena and Mike Mades, we lived and died 20 years ago with that 2002 team, that 2003 team, that 2004 team, that 2005 team. We lived and died with them. Our week was dictated by how UNM football did, and we couldn't wait to get back to the game. But I will tell you this, that, and I've been very candid about it. You're damn right. I wanted to see Lobo football lose. And my degree sitting, you can't see it, right over there. Grew up here, a sports reporter. And my interactions with, Mike Loxley, and it's not that I think he's a bad guy. He's obviously done wonders at Maryland. I know somebody who's a Maryland alumni, and they will take a bowl win every year. He's won 3 in a row. And there's a few other people there that within, not on the football staff, but within the department that, I prefer to see him lose. Getting to know Danny last year, Ed, I'm trying to make my point quick, but getting to know Danny last year, I still wanted to be objective when we had him on and ask him questions I think that were pertinent to them winning and losing. And he was candid with us. Ed, we've talked about it a lot last year, how we wanted to see him succeed. Danny Gonzalez changed my perception. Bronco Mendenhall, I know we're in the media. Bronco Mendenhall is kind of, this secrecy, as I've made the terrible joke. I guess UNM football is getting ready to invade Nazi-occupied Europe, where they have the Death Star plans. It's so secret. I think they should be welcoming the public. I think you should know who the players are. Everybody watching, you probably know who the basketball team is. You know all the players on the basketball team. It's probably hard for you to figure out who in the F is on this football team other than Devin Dampier. But Ed, I'm going to throw it to you because there's two things out of that. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but number one, you can piggyback off that of what I just said. And number two, you and I really wanted to see Danny Gonzalez succeed.
You know what? I'm a diehard, no matter who's coaching there. I remember when they hired Bob Davie, and I remember reading the paper, and I said, "Hey, he was at 35 and 25 at Notre Dame. You know, that's Notre Dame, right?" And I thought, "Hey, that's a good hire. Let's see what he does." I was optimistic, like I am with every coach. The glass is always half full with me. I'm not a Pollyanna, though. I will tell you how they play if I don't feel like they're playing well or they're not good. So, yes, we did want to see Coach Gonzalez succeed. And I think one of the reasons, too, though, is the way he was so personable with us. He was always gave us time, had interviews with us, never didn't have, time for us. He always was always, hey, he saw us at the press conference. How's it going, Ryan? How's it going, Ed? And he went to Valley. He graduated. He's an Albuquerquean, right? So I wanted him to succeed. And I thought that game against Utah State at the end of the year probably did him in. He played not to lose. He kind of played, cautiously. And I really, and then there was a lot of people that thought he'd get another year. And I think we all thought after that Utah State game, he was probably going to get fired. And he did. Going forward with any Lobo coach, I don't think that there's been a time that my fandom has ever dropped off, even if they're 0-11 when they were with Coach Loxley. It was bad. And it was so bad that I remember he was, instead of lifting weights, he was talking about stretching and this and that. And I remember quarterback B.J. Holbrook almost got killed. And I just didn't understand that approach from that, at the college level at that time. I didn't get it. So, they moved on from him and they went to, to Coach Gonzalez after that. And it just didn't, it was a day. I went to Coach Davie and then Coach Gonzalez.
Davie, yeah.
Right. And so, listen, Coach, what we do know about Coach Mendenhall, and I've stressed this over and over, is that he has won. Yes, he's won, and he had one losing season. I'm still hoping. Again, it's kind of been he's played things very very secretive. I don't know if I understand that or get that because we've talked about that. And I think one of the things that Daryl Chestnut said, he says this to me a lot. When we talk, it's like 30, 40 minutes. You've got to promote the program. Why would people want to come here? He said all those things in our interview with him. You have to have people want to come to UNM, change the culture. So I'm hoping Coach Mendenhall does that. Maybe there's some things he's done so far that haven't been media accessible or media friendly. He's not going to be Coach Gonzalez and chatting up everybody. That's not his style. That's already been quite clear. But as long as he wins on the field, and again, remember, this is a program it's at its lowest ebb again. It's been at its lowest ebb for the last, Coach Loxley, low ebb, right? Coach Davie came in. Think about it. That he needs major credit for getting the team to 2 bowls. Then after that, when's the last time we've been to a? So, and I think people forget that because of the way he left here. He had some baggage at the end of his contract that people haven't forgot. But if you think about those 2 teams there, particularly that 2016 team, would it be wrong to say that might have been one of the better teams in Lobo football history? I don't think it would be. I don't.
They were Mountain West Mountain Division champions, but lost a tiebreaker to Wyoming. And they did everything that they needed to do that year. I remember thinking back on it. But that's probably, you can hold it up there with the 97 team that got to the WAC championship and Graham Lee got hurt and got shellacked by Colorado State. 2007, they went 9-4, and you had 2 phenomenal wide receivers with Donovan Portery. That was probably one of the, I think it's Zach Arnett. You can list the guys that were local that Rocky did. I'm going to mention it again, for as much shit as I talk about Lobo football, I was once, and I was younger. It was 20 years ago, but I was once, I lived and died with him. I loved loved the brand of football that they played. They might not have won every game, but damn it, Rocky was going to punch you in the expletive mouth. And I agree with you, Ed. I as I've told you off the record, for this show, not for sake, we have to disagree with each other. But this one, I think we very, very firmly agree on. And it's true. It's just, I just think it might be the hardest place to win. And if Bronco Mendenhall does not win, I don't know who you bring in. I mean, I don't think you can bring in Bill Belichick or Nick Saban. And I don't think, obviously, Nick Saban doesn't want to do it. Plus, those guys are like in their 70s. Not that that's going to happen anyway, but it's just there. I do, Ed, I do want to go to some comments, and I want to get your thoughts on Jerry West. I do want to go to Ben Weissong. Coach Mendenhall and his staff have done Coach Mendenhall and his staff have done in the short time they've been here with this team in terms of discipline and attention to detail has been incredible. We're about to see a completely different product on Saturdays. I think a lot of people can. I think the biggest question I have, and that's been the thing, is the attention to detail. Sean Ryder has been writing about that a lot.
It's about that. Every article, it's in there, the attention to detail. And you know what? Much respect to Mr. Weissong. Much respect. You've been around the program for a while. You have to take that and say, hey, I've got to listen to that. But again, I know we have to see the results on the field. But when I hear a comment from a guy like Mr. Weissong like that, I've got to pay attention.
Yeah, no, it's true. Jimmy H said this: Bronco needs to hire Darryl as a coach. I thought that was funny when you wrote that. I agreed with that. John Romero, enjoyed thoroughly. The CSU guest sports writer was a treat. The insight offered. I had to step away and miss Darryl. We'll catch the interview on tape. The beauty of your product, gracias. Yeah, you can catch it on YouTube when we're done here. The sound, my print background, I think I do an okay job hosting the show. I'm not Don Imus or any of the legendary radio people, Jim Rome. I listen to Rome all the time. But I was thrown in a loop with Daryl Chestnut's sound, and we had some echo there. So for me, I was like, I wasn't my usual casual laid back self. So I apologize for that. I'm going to go to Rudy Chavez. I've been a Lobo football fan since 1962. Bronco Mendenhall is going to succeed. I have never been sure of anything.
Okay, and Rudy, we all know Rudy, right? Rudy's been a Lobo fan for, as he mentioned, longer than me. I've been a fan since 1970, and Rudy's he's a big supporter, and I think he's I got to say he's really positive, a positive fan. So again, we're hoping that. I know I am. It's a tough schedule. They've lost a lot. I'm anxious to see again the attention to detail, the fundamentals. We asked, are they going to, Cy Riley earlier when we had him on weeks ago. Are they going to cut down on the penalties, which plagued them all last season? And if he's paying attention to that kind of detail and coaching, I think it's going to be a different Lobo team. We may not see the results of that for a while, maybe not the first year, but I've talked about the Mendenhall effect. Where does that take place? I think we're going to see it. You're seeing the comments from a guy like Ben Weissong and Rudy Chavez, and Rudy's had season tickets since who knows how long, maybe since 62. I don't know. So, yeah, I think those are good comments. I do. Again, Ryan, I understand they have to win on the field. And, we haven't seen them win for a while consistently. And that's what Darryl said. They've got to do it consistently. We want to see him build a program here. And seeing a comment like that from Rudy and again, Mr. Weissong, that's exciting to me.
No, it was nice talking to Darryl because it really, I just don't feel like you hear that out of UNM football alumni. Ned James and I talked, and I love Ned. I mean, I'm sure other UNM alumni still took offense to Diego Pavia. Sorry, his name escaped me. The COVID and the alcohol all those years. When he had urinate gate, I know we name everything gate, but again, he's a follower of Christ. What would Jesus do? I'm sure he'd urinate on an opposing team's field. 13 years of private Catholic school education to come up with that joke. Ed, I want to get to Jerry West. We predominantly focus on UNM in the Mountain West Conference, but I feel like we had to mention Jerry West. He is the NBA logo. We were talking about him Tuesday night and then woke up Wednesday morning, and he had sadly passed. I don't know if he's mostly known, and again, somebody older can disagree with me. He orchestrated the Lakers of the 2000s, the Clippers. I mean, he, as an executive, is, when I watched Winning Time based off Jeff Pearlman, who we had on the show, his book, Showtime. And by the way, Ed, we love that you called the show on Hulu, which is called Clip, about the Donald Sterling thing, Losing Time. It's not called Losing Time, but Rick called it Losing Time. And we were both on mute when you said Losing Time, and we lost it, but we love that you called it, because we're just going to call it Losing Time. I need to watch it. But there's a show on Amazon I'm not sure if you're aware of, some of our listeners are on, called The Boys, and it premiered last night at 11, season 5, I think. So I was rewatching it just because I love that show. So it's about superheroes if they were pieces of shit. So it's fantastic.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Oh no, the language in it is fantastic. Jerry West was selected to, what a transition. It's like the squirrel on the jet skis. Jerry West was selected to the Basketball Hall of Fame 3 times in his storied career as a player, executive, and whose silhouette is considered to be the basis of the NBA logo. He died Wednesday morning at the age of 86. That the Clippers announced. The accolades. West was the 3rd player in NBA history to reach 25,000 points, was an all-star every year of his career, and led the Lakers to the NBA Finals 9 times, only winning 1 title. Man, talk about that one. In 1971-72, he was also a 12-time All-NBA selection. He was an NBA Finals MVP, a part of a losing team in 1969. I think he's the only person to ever have that happen. And he was a part of the NBA's, I believe, 50th and 75th team. Following his playing career, West found title success as an NBA executive, building the Showtime Lakers of the 1980s. He won 5 titles in that decade, and then he oversaw the formation of the O'Neal-Bryant tandem. I wish Rick was on, because I have my qualms with those Shaq-Kobe titles. But they are what they are. West then it's bad when the Knicks fan was rooting for the 76ers. When West then stayed for just the first title in 2000, as the Lakers went on to three-peat. He became an advisor for the Clippers starting in 2017, helping engineer the breakup of the team's Lob City core that led the way to signing of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. The Clippers did reach the Western Conference Finals for the first time in their history. They did lose to the Suns in 6 games. You are a Laker fan, Ed. I would like to know your thoughts on Jerry West.
He also helped Golden State win 3. He was an executive with Golden State too, so helped them too. He's the first poster on my wall. I've been a Laker fan since '72, and when that happened, I was doing my sports report for 99.9 as I do in the morning. I looked and there's breaking news, and I think you think that the heroes are immortal; they'll never die, and that shook me a little bit. That did. I'm not going to lie. That one shook me, and I remember my mom telling me this. My mom passed away in 2016. When she would see performers of her that she had seen. Ethel Merman died a long time ago, and my mom was a little bit sad. And I asked her. She says, "Well, I saw her perform." So I think same thing with West. Great player, big hands, great leaper, could pull up real quick off the left and right, picture perfect form. JJ Redick said months ago that he played against plumbers. It's a lie. Played against Walt Frazier, Pistol Pete, Earl Monroe, Hal Greer. Look at the film here. All you got to do is see that. A great guard, one of the best ever, no question about it. He's tortured, haunted by the losses to Boston. The 69 championship, when he was the MVP, they lost. They had expected to win. Jack Kent Cook had put balloons up. And they're supposed to release him after the game. Bill Russell found that out and said there would be no balloons released here, and Boston won. The funny thing was the car that they gave him from Sport Magazine was a green car. So not only did they lose, it was a green car. So, then he goes on to the Lakers, and his love for the Lakers was incredible. He was a part of the you mentioned the 5 championships that they won there. And he signed Bob McAdoo in 1981, traded for Michael Thompson, traded for Kobe, traded the rights to acquire Kobe, signed Shaq in free agency. He made a lot of great moves. When Paul Westhead got fired in 1982, Jerry Buss said him and Pat Riley were going to be co-coaches. And the first game they did that, Jerry West told Pat Riley, "I'm not coaching." He coached 3 years. He hated coaching. Look at the film on this guy. I can't believe anybody would think this guy couldn't play in any era and be one of the greats. He was a great, great, great player. So they said, though, I got to say this real quick, that when Phil Jackson came in 1999, he and West did not see eye to eye. I think Jerry West had a problem with him dating the boss's daughter, and Dr. Buss had said that was okay. Jackson, I think West was mad. Jackson never came into his office. He said in his book, I read it, West on West, that he never came into the office and said hi or showed him any respect. So that was it. And after the 2000 championship, he writes in his book that instead of being on the court or in the Staples Center, out on the court, he's in his office with the light on, wishing he was anywhere else but there. And I had to read that 3 times, like he just won a championship, but the guy went through some depression. He had a tough upbringing. So I think, gosh, I'm seeing those. I had to watch those films again over and over. Look how good this guy was. He's incredible. But someone mentioned this too, as an article in the paper today, the best basketball man, the best basketball person. My brother called him the consummate professional, and that's what he was. It hurt me. It hurt me when I read the press release was from the LA Clippers, and I thought to myself, gosh, should come
That's
from the
really
Lakers.
that's really weird to me.
It was, but that's his last position. And one last thing, they said that at the Dr. Buss, a lot of the credit for the championships went to West, right? A lot of the credit in the press said Jerry West had built these teams. Dr. Buss felt a little bit of resentment. He thought he should have gotten the credit. He's the one signing the checks and doing, spending the money. So there's a little bit of resentment. I was upset because the fractured relationship with the Lakers. Look at that, Elgin Baylor there, of West and the Lakers, and they never, really. Jeannie Buss took away his season tickets 2 years ago, and that was just another. How could you do that to this guy? I just couldn't believe it. But anyway, sorry to ramble, but that guy gave me so many memories. And George Scott, I sent you the text that George sent. Gary Colson, the former New Mexico Lobo, and he were best friends or good friends. He came to a Lobo banquet when George was playing there, and George said he signed every autograph, answered every question. The consummate professional, one of the greatest players and greatest executives. Adam Silver said that, the NBA commissioner said, in NBA history. So big loss to the NBA world and the basketball world.
I forgot. I had heard that they took his tickets away. Jeannie Buss took his tickets away.
That ticked me off. That really did.
I saw on something on Instagram today that he drafted Clay and Draymond. And then it was another list how he made the trade for Kobe, drafted so-and-so. I mean, so I guess you want to talk about, for as much as I despise the Golden State Warriors, I still like Clay. I like Clay a lot. And I think he was left off the 70th anniversary team for like Damian Lillard. And I'm not disrespecting Lillard. I thought Clay, I mean, you're on those teams. You helped implement it. That was just, I don't know. That was very important to me. But we had Jeff Pearlman on again as who wrote Showtime, which was transformed into the HBO Max or Max HBO, whatever the hell it is, show Winning Time. And it only got 2 seasons. John C. Reilly played Jerry Buss, pretty star-studded cast. And I forgot the actor who played Jerry West, but he was approached as a, quote, like unhinged asshole. And that wasn't the case. I heard he was a very nice guy and he did get heated, but you had mentioned all of the, he fell into depression. But I mean, you're the logo of the league. Like it's that as much as I also have kind of like disliked the NBA, I've gone like this with it, my fandom. It does help when the Knicks are better for me, but I definitely recognize the NBA logo more so than I do like the NBA or the MLB or the NFL or the NHL. I mean, he's the logo. And I think that's very cool. And I know that it's him, and I know that they talked about changing it to Kobe. But I think that you kind of have to keep Jerry West as the logo there. I mean, it's iconic. I don't know, Kobe was a Laker. I don't know how you feel about that.
They said that he never wanted that kind of attention. In fact, he had asked them to, hey, he had no problem. He's a selfless guy. He didn't want that kind of attention. I think he wanted his play to speak for itself, and it did. And you saw the film. Anybody that knows basketball saw the highlights there. That guy was an amazing basketball player. And so, there's and it's funny, in 1986, Dr. Buss wanted to trade James Worthy for Mark Aguirre and Roy Tarpley, and Jerry West threatened to quit. And then the Warriors wanted to trade Klay Thompson for Kevin Love, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to resign." And they didn't, and he turned out to be right. He knew basketball. He wasn't a great coach, like I said. He hated the coaching part. That wasn't something he wanted to do. But I got to tell you another funny story. Now you got to stop me somewhere because I'll keep going on.
No.
This is a funny story. So he's training Jim Buss to be the general manager, Jerry Buss's son. And Jim Buss says to him, "Well, it doesn't seem to be that hard of a job." And Jerry West was flabbergasted. He's like, "It's an incredibly hard job. It's a job that, you're lucky. You're very fortunate if you win. It's hard to win. People forget that." And he won how many championships as an executive? Not with the Clippers. He never got one there, but he got 5 with the Lakers and helped the Warriors win some championships. He knew talent. He knew how to put together teams. What he did with Kobe. Now, this is another story. Traded for the rights to Kobe Bryant. Had Kobe Bryant play one-on-one against a 40-year-old, still in shape, Michael Cooper. And he said Kobe destroyed him. And that's what he knew. He had to trade for him. They had to trade the rights to Charlotte. Vlade Divac, the Lakers center, goes to Charlotte. And Charlotte starts kind of reneging on the deal. And Jerry West is losing it because he knows how good Bryant's going to be. And they finally agree to the trade. And the Lakers get 3 championships with Shaq and Kobe on that. And maybe should have won a few more, people think, if Kobe and Shaq's egos didn't get away from him and caused the split in 2003, I believe, after they lost to the San Antonio Spurs. But he knew how to put together talent. He really did.
No, they went to the finals in 2004 together. They lost to the Pistons.
That's right. After that. That was after. Yeah. I think a year after that. Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot what the heck was I reading that this is going to be me. The Warriors would destroy a couple years ago, the Warriors would destroy the 2004 Pistons. And I'm like, get out of here. You want to stop Steph Curry, punch him in the face. Even though I know that's illegal. I want your opinion real quick. I was hoping to have Rick on. We've been talking a while and I know everybody's still listening. I'm Ryan Tamori. This is Ed Nunez. This is the Pit Press Live. We're in the dog days of summer and we know this is a basketball town. So we were trying to stick with, basketball theme in the NBA finals. I have said that this NBA postseason has been one of the worst professional postseasons I have ever watched. People can't hold leads. I know the Timberwolves came back on the Nuggets, but it's like nobody can hold a lead. Nobody can hold the lead. Well, they did come back, but nobody can hold the lead, or you're getting blown out. It doesn't do it for me, and I don't watch much NBA during the regular season because I love college football. I love the NHL. I'm a baseball guy. I'm watching, in the fall when both the NHL and NBA start, I'm watching college basketball. I'm watching college football. I'm watching the NFL and I'm watching the NHL. The NBA is on the back burner. Now, I did watch a little bit more of the Knicks this year down the stretch. I paid for it on YouTube TV because they were good and they were fun to watch. And it's been a hot minute, but I can tell you where I was with my grandfather in South River, New Jersey, watching John Starks go like 2 of 19 in Game 7 of the 1994 NBA Finals. And I was like 6 or 7, but I remember, and he loves sports and he was like, the Knicks are going to blow it. That's my thought, Ed. I don't think even what that run that the Mavericks went on last night, I don't think it salvaged the series because it wasn't a full comeback. They didn't grab the lead. Luka is, I didn't realize this until everybody opened it up today again, because I don't watch much NBA. So people are going to be like, why are you giving a hot take on the NBA? I didn't realize he was such a liability on defense. He's slow. I know he's a phenomenal shooter, but he's slow. And the Celtics did it without Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn. But I wish Rick was on, because we talked about it and we text. I don't understand how this Mavericks team got here, because I think their role players have disappeared. I was trying to figure out how they were winning anything in that Clipper series. Probably could have gone any way, because it's been Luka and Kyrie. But I don't see, and it was reported that they weren't at practice today, the Mavs, that only the trainers were shooting. But I mean, this has been one of the worst professional postseasons I have ever watched. The finals have been whatever. I will give kudos to Boston, and I'm probably one of the only people on the planet. I like Jason Tatum, but Jaylen Brown's been the best player. Ed, just your thoughts real quick on what you've seen out of the NBA Finals. Now, I know you're a Laker fan, so the Celtics, the Celtics winning probably boils your blood. But from a basketball point, what have you seen?
Well, no, they're a good team. Jaylen Brown and Tatum had 30 and 31 last night, respectively. So you've got to give them credit. They hit shots, they spread the floor, and they've Drew Holiday, the third part of that. Pritchard comes off the bench and gives them some good minutes. They were without Porzingis, but we mentioned they've got the veteran Al Horford, who's been around, it seems like 80 years, but knows what to do and makes the plays. Derek White's another good player. They're just a better team. But you mentioned Luka, and I think we had a group text going with some guys I used to play a lot of ball with, and you mentioned the liability on defense. But the other problem is he cries a lot and flops a lot, and then doesn't get back on D. He's crying to the officials, and you're going 4-on-5. Coach Mazzulla for Boston has made it a priority to attack him defensively. He's told his guys, hey, man, this guy doesn't play any defense. Watch the film. He goes, he may make a initial effort to bend down and move, or then he reaches, and then they're right by him. So he doesn't – his defense is – here's the other thing, Ryan. Before the playoffs, you knew him as a pretty good player, a good shooter. Step back, he can make all kinds of shots. Now he's on the world's biggest stage, and his defense is being showcased as being really bad. Now he's a great player. Now somebody Woj said this on the ESPN, that maybe he learns from this, learns to stop crying, play a little bit better D, and 2 years from now maybe we see him hoisting the Larry O'Brien, or the Bill Russell Trophy. It used to be the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
It is the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
Okay, so the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
Yeah, the MVP is the Bill
That's
Russell
right.
Trophy.
But he's got a ways to go. To stop crying, man. Stop. I know refs. We've said this before. I made mistakes. As a referee, but you got to play through that. All the best players do. They make their case, but they don't sit there and yell at the refs where your guys are 4-on-5 in transition defense. So he's got to learn to just pick and choose his battles.
No, it's been I agree with you there. And Derek White, I don't think gets enough credit. That trade was phenomenal. I mean, if he was on the Mavs, it might be a different series, but that Brad Stevens, his basketball mind, I mean, as a Knicks fan, the Celtics, it stings me a little bit, but they've dominated them on every level. And it's got to be probably one of the most lopsided finals in some time. I mean, I can't think. It's just painful to me, and I'm losing my train of thought. I just want to show this very quickly on back to the Mountain West Conference and what we usually talk about on this show. Let me present it. Great. Live show here, but Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Navarez has said that she tells KSL Sports out of Salt Lake City, Utah, the conference is looking at everything that includes naming rights for the conference and looking into private equity. But she says it's still in the early process. Quote, we are looking at everything. We are not far down the line as the Big 12. We have begun conversations with private equity firms. That was on JJ and Alex on KSL Sports Live. I believe that's the show that I went on to talk about Bronco Mendenhall being hired. So that's good news. I mean, I would love it if it, we talked about that with Kevin Lytle. I think it would be great if it was the Dude Wipes Mountain West Conference or the Maverick Mountain West Conference. Ed, did you ever think you would have seen the day where conferences had naming rights?
No, I remember. I think I told you back in the day. Pete Rozelle used to be against all of that. I remember Jim McMahon and Walter Payton. This is before you were even born. Pete Rozelle wearing Adidas and headbands, and he really came down hard on them. He said, "I don't want the league to be like a race car driver that has all these things on their uniform." But here we go. Here we go. It's a different time now. All this NIL action and college athletics has really changed everything. The NCAA, who used to come down on programs for whatever they thought and impose harsh penalties, they've been muted. They don't exist anymore. It's incredible to me. They have nothing to say anymore. It's really a changed landscape. So, no, I didn't think we'd ever see that. Naming rights, I didn't think we'd see that.
No, it boggles my mind. It just, the Dude Wipes SEC or the Pornhub Mountain West Conference. Rick wasn't here to get that. I'm upset about that. Dude, what a great way to end on the show. Few things. We are going to be in Vegas for the Mountain West Conference Football Media Days in roughly a month, July 10th and 11th. We will be coming to you live from Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, giving them free publicity, but it's an awesome hotel, so I'll gladly do that. We'll be live there from Tuesday. We'll be there live Tuesday, July 9th, and we'll probably come to you live from Wednesday, July 10th at Circa. It's in downtown Vegas. If you haven't been there, it's 21 and over. It's phenomenal. It's a great place. I sound like a former president of the United States. It's great. It's phenomenal. Coaches will talk, players will talk on Wednesday, July 10th, and then coaches will talk on Wednesday, July 11th. We'll hopefully have to bring you some interviews that night. And then when Ed and I get back, that will be, well, hold on. Here we go, Ed. We were talking about this today. Mike Roberts used to cry at the B-ball refs, used to love it.
Okay, now one of the things I remember he would say, now Bobby Dobler is going to call that on whoever. Amazing. He would. John Romero is absolutely right. Mike Roberts was the biggest Lobo homer there ever was. Robert Portnoy is not anything close to that. And Scott Galletti wasn't, but Mike Roberts was, and he could get away with it.
He was the Mike Roberts. Again, we'll be at Mountain West Conference Football Media Days, July 10th and 11th, coming to you live July 9th and July 10th. Please email us. We're starting a mailbag on what you want us to talk about. Again, we come to you every Tuesday and Thursday live at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. Feel free to give us some topics to talk about beforehand, as opposed to the comments that we get on Twitter and YouTube. So as I always say, you can tell me I suck, tell Rick he's great. Appreciate the guests we have on, maybe who we should get on, what we can talk about. I'm going to repeat it as I have many times on the show. We created this for the Lobo fan because Eric Malton and I couldn't join us again tonight. He does have a newborn, about a month old, or over a month old. That the coverage in this town just isn't what it's up to. You're talking to somebody that worked at a TV station in town. They did not have a sports department at the time, and it boggled my mind. I do have other interests besides sports, B movies, history. My degree from UNM over there says history. And I think, Jeff Grammer does a great job with what he can and the resources. When I worked at the Journal, it was, a paper this big, And now it's like this, and it's Wired stories, and I don't even bother to purchase it anymore because that was my background, and I wanted to support local journalism. But anyway, I'm on a rant and rambling, and I'm getting tired. This is like the first time we've talked over 2 hours, but it was worth it. Yeah, email us at thepitpressnm@gmail.com. Mail anything you want to say. I'm running out of steam here, but we'd appreciate it because we want more fan interaction. And maybe give us ideas for how we can get the show better. I know we had video and graphics tonight. I had some Colorado State graphics lined up, but just with the three of us talking there, I thought it was just easier to not do that. But we're trying to make this show more visual appealing, and for those that listen, and it seems to be a lot of usual suspects that I've seen on the comments. Again, I can't appreciate you guys enough. I really, really do appreciate it. Other than the guy that called us a bunch of, I held back there in the G-rated version, that called us, told us, quote, "You pinheads suck," even though none of us are bald. Ed, do you have any final thoughts? I really appreciate you getting us Daryl Chestnut. I really do. I thought he was a great conversation. I hope we can nab him more. And I hope when we do nab him more, we can get him properly with like some great audio, because I thought he was worth it.
No, it was a great show. You guys had the guy from the talking about Colorado State. That was a great guest. So no, Ryan, I'm glad to be part of it. Daryl was a great guest, and thank you for letting me go on my little rants about Jerry West. That was important to me. He was, like I said, the first poster on my wall at my mom's house, my mom and dad's house. So I'll never forget that.
No, I rant and ramble all the time on this show, and I own the company. But maybe I can do that. Anyway, no, that's why I was glad you were able to join us tonight, because I knew I wanted to talk about Jerry West, and we wanted to hit on the NBA Finals. Next week, I don't know what guests we have lined up. Probably try to reach out to Boise State again. UNLV is going to be good. Again, we're trying to bring you somebody that covers all of the 12 football teams in the Mountain West Conference. 2 down, 10 to go. It might be 9 to go because Hawaii is probably hard to get. But if they can join us at 8 o'clock Mountain Time, it's 4 o'clock in Hawaii, I'm sure we could get somebody to join us. Kevin Lytle from the Coloradoan, Daryl Chestnut, former UNM running back from 2015 to 2017. You know what I didn't do, and I just have to do it before we go, is where is he? I don't care what you said, Miguel Sanchez. I think we might have for Gloria Navarez. Eric just texted me. We've had her on the show before, but with that comment tonight, that'd be a good interview. She will be at Mountain West Conference football giving her state of the conference address that Wednesday morning. So we'll be there for that. But again, on behalf of Daryl Chestnut, Kevin Lytle of the Fort Collins, Coloradoan, Richard Thompson, Eric Malton, my business partner in this, couldn't join us tonight, but he did produce, and I appreciate it. Eric made my life a little bit easier. And Ed Nunez, a Lobo fan since 1970, and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. My name's Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Mountain on YouTube, Twitter, or X, and Instagram. We'll catch you guys later. Don't forget the mailbag at email us at thepitpressnm@gmail.com. Everybody have a great weekend.